3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to episode 108 of Ruse Radio. We are back at it again with a very special guest. Please introduce yourself, sir.
Oh, thank you. Hi, my name is Marcos Cirino. You can call me Marcos. I am from Puerto Rico. I do stand-up comedy during the nighttime. I'm an engineer during the daytime.
Yeah.
And thank you for having me here, man.
Thank you for being here. Does your comedy and engineering, do those mindsets ever merge?
Dude, that is a very good question. So when I started writing my jokes, I started on my notes app on my phone, which I still use when I'm on the go. But I started doing it on my Word, on Microsoft Word. I would just write all these notes down. And then my mom saw it one day. She was like, she's an engineer as well. She was like, why don't you use Excel? And then you just on every cell, you put the bit and you separate them. And then on another column, you just put how much time each joke takes. And so then what I'll do is if I get called for a set, I already have all these jokes. I know how much time they take.
On a spreadsheet?
On a spreadsheet. And I'll just add up 10 minutes and be like, this is what it is. And I have them with the title, the time. Did they hit? Did they not hit? I'm thinking of adding a category part to it. Whether it's talking about dating or something like that. But yeah, it's a really organized...
That's hilarious, dude.
It's perfect.
That's actually the best answer you could have given me.
That was a great. That's what I said. This is a great question, dude. I love showing people it. I'll open my laptop. They'll be like, "What is that?" I'm like, "It's my Excel sheet. How do you organize your jokes, bro?"
I mean, it's actually super duper organized if you think about it. That's actually the best possible way you could do it. It just sounds like so. Okay, then the question I would have is I have to imagine there's times where you're on stage and maybe you break away from whatever you had planned though, and then you have to recalculate in the moment how much time you have left and what you can all fit in here, and when they flash the light at you, oh shit, I have a minute, so that means we're gonna have to cut out the three last sections of the spreadsheet.
Yeah, and that happens. I at my the showcase, I did my first showcase here in Chicago recently. This girl kept heckling, and and I did, but it was lovely because I got to do very good crowd work, which I'm not usually very good. I'm trying to get better. So I did very good crowd work, but then...
Was that what you posted on Instagram? Yeah, I saw this, yeah.
Yeah.
She was with her sugar daddy, if I'm correct.
Yeah, and so the first thing that she mentioned to the host was he said, oh, are you guys dating? How'd you guys meet? The usual. And she said, oh, we met on Hinge. And then she added, it was 2 days after my 18th birthday. And I was like...
She said that?
I was like, bro, why would you throw that? And the guy was just laughing, and I was like... Everybody's looking at you different now, my man. That was wild. But then
that is so wild,
dude. It was.
That's the wildest part.
That's why I asked her. At one point, she talked about her undergrad, and I was like, "So were you just making fun of her? So you were of age at that point? Because I can't tell how old you were in all these stories." But yeah, she kept heckling my set, when I was at a certain part of it and the light got flashed, like you said, and it was a lot earlier. So what I did is I just cut off some and then I sped up a little bit. I try to really respect the light and the time, because I've gotten very good feedback from people. Some hosts are like, thank you for respecting the time. And
because some people do go over. I've noticed that.
Some people go over hard.
And it's almost like I don't know, that puts the person who's hosting in a weird position, because now they don't know if there's double flash the light or run up at you. That's why they're thanking you, because they're thank God for not stressing me out.
Yeah,
I'm not trying to run a tight ship here.
Yeah, and it gives me as a comedian if you do 30 seconds over, that's fine or something.
Yeah.
But sometimes you can see oh, that joke didn't hit, so they're gonna do another minute and a half joke, 2 minutes, and then that kind of bothers, especially at open mics, it bothers me, because it's we're all waiting our turn here. At a showcase, maybe it's a bit different, but at open mic, it's yo, get out.
Yeah, it's funny because with the engineering thing you said, when it comes to me and music sets, I'll be okay, I have this song that's 4 minutes long. That means I'm allowed to do this 1 minute rap right before the song. I'm trying to fill the 5 minutes as jam packed as I can, with also being graceful to the fact that it's only 5 minutes or it's only 4 minutes. You can't go over the 4 minutes, and if I do, I have to be so good. I have to be so good that they won't care that I'm going over 30 seconds, because that's the other part of it, is if you really are killing with music or comedy, people will give you that extra minute.
Yeah,
they'll be oh, this person's definitely in the zone right now.
You're completely right. And it's they're getting the laughs, everybody's feeling, the host especially likes that, because it's they're making people feel good at my show.
Yeah.
So it's you gotta give respect and give credit where credit is due. So if they go over but they're killing, good on you.
Are there open mics around here that you go to that you know would be accepting of musicians? Because that's something I've been trying to find. Because I actually like the comedy open mics a lot. I feel like the comedian open mics are more fun than the music open mics for some weird reason.
Oh, you think so?
I'm just like a strange animal. I can't explain myself.
I have not been to the. You think the comedy open mics are better? You said
just for some reason, because you kind of throw all the comedians off. It's kind of fun. They're all like, "Whoa, what the fuck is this?"
So you just like, would you go up and just rap?
Yeah, that's what I made the mistake because I saw that the open mic down here, the Rogers Park open mic.
Yeah.
I was like, or the Glenwood open mic, I should say. I was like, there's an open mic right down the street from my apartment. I'm gonna go there. I'm just doxing myself right now, but I'm gonna go there, and then I go down there, and I was like, oh, this is a comedian thing, but whatever, I'll just do my thing anyway. And then luckily she had like a Bluetooth speaker, so it all works out. And that's how I met James in the Jar. That's how I started meeting people. I say, hey, I got a podcast. Hey, I do all this. With James, I filmed a little skit with him that night because like immediately he comes up to me. He's like, hey, stick around. I want to use you for a skit.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, sounds great.
Yeah.
I like how I like when life happens to me sometimes. It's like, okay, this is perfect. I'm sticking around. I'm the rapper guy now.
That's the cool thing about going to these mics is you meet people that like do skits or or got their own open mics going or their own showcases.
I think comedians are more into like the just content thing and just having fun thing, whereas musicians are a little bit more like artistic, and I feel like I identify with the comedian thing, and comedians are fun. One thing with the podcast thing is comedians are easy podcast guests.
Oh hell yeah, this is my first podcast ever, man, so I'm happy. I'm having a lot of fun. Yeah, it's my first one.
Good for you, dude. Yeah, are there not too many like Chicago podcasts? Have you just not seen them, or have you not you've been waiting for the call?
No, I've not seen them. I was I've just not seen them, and I don't know if I was even waiting for the call. I was just like doing these open mics. Like that's how I do it. I just keep doing them, right?
Yeah.
And I know like you said, things will happen.
Yeah.
Eventually. Like that's how it was. But first to answer your question, there's a place called the Annoyance Theater. I think they're more open to alternate kinds of things like up there, like improv. So the thing is, comedy's a great thing, but comedians can be very zealous of their art form.
Yeah.
So like even with improv people, like apparently there's like a beef with improv people.
That makes sense.
I'm taking classes in Second City of improv, and some people were like,
improv's not real comedy.
Yeah, then some people were like, don't tell anybody you're doing improv. And I was like, what is this, like high school? Like these are the improv kids we're going to shove in the locker or something? Like,
this is so funny. It's funny because I know it's true. Like,
yeah.
It's just kind of like a weird... Like it's like people are so like absorbed with whatever it is they're doing. Like I bet the improv people are probably the same way. They're like, oh, these fucking comedians can't appreciate improv. Like fuck these guys.
Yeah.
And it's just like this little civil war in the comedy community.
And you can tell it's different lifestyles. Like comedians come from all walks of life.
Yes.
Like, but mostly like you'll meet a lot of people with odd jobs, like night jobs, bartenders, people that have a lot of substitute teachers. What's it called? The deadliest catch. The people who are you meet people from those jobs. Improv people are usually more theater people. Like they were like comedians just come from all walks of life. Usually improv people are drama, theater, things like that. So I get where there's a distinction, but it's just so funny to me that they're like, yeah, we kind of don't beef with improv people at open mics.
I just feel like improv, like the rules of improv you can apply to comedy, so it's kind of silly. Because you could take all those rules of improv and not even like want to do the improv. You could just observe what improv is telling you and then apply that to comedy. Because that's really what I think the value of improv is. I think all of life is improvisational. And so when you study something like improv, it actually helps you with everything else. It helps to have a grand view of things like that with most things. It's like, oh, if I can take the principles of this and apply it to other things, like take the good bits out. Because improv really is kind of like a mindset. I think it teaches you to roll with things. And like the whole yes and thing is so essential just for like getting along with people. Like if you just apply yes and to most things, you actually have a way better time. You could even disagree with something somebody said, but if you find a way to yes and them, that makes it a good time.
Yeah.
Like it's a really, really like core skill. And so it's just so funny to me when people get mad about improv because it's like, I actually think improv is like really, I played improv games when I was a kid, and I like a few years ago realized that was what improv is like those games I would play when I was a kid. I'm like, oh, like this is just keeping in touch with like that. And when I write music, I think that's the same thing. It's like, I think writing jokes is even like that. It's just kind of following yourself and learning to say yes to yourself and coming up with your best ideas that way.
Yeah.
So It again blows my mind because it actually, like, you guys could be getting along, like you guys could really be learning from each other, but instead
I think it's
beefing.
like
Truly mind-blowing. We all could be getting along, but instead we gotta be hating on one another. Why? Why can't we all just cooperate? Why can't we all cooperate and blow each other's minds all at once? It's what we're here for. We are all professional mind blowers, okay? And it blows my mind that we don't just blow minds. Why can't we just do that? Just focus on that. And so that's the message today, folks. That's what I'm sending you home with here is blow minds, be that professional mind blower. And we've got t-shirts to let everybody know that that's what you do. $25 professional mind blower t-shirts. And you can let all the folks know exactly what your role is in this world. It's a great conversation starter, great piece of art as it is, and also just a great way to support the show. We got smalls, mediums, and larges. It's $25. How could you say no to that? If you want to support the show, you don't want a shirt, but you also still desperately want to support what we're doing here. You love seeing people shine. Ruse bringing these people in and highlighting their beautiful personalities. Then you can do that through the Patreon. $5 a month, and it supports everything we're doing. It's the price of a coffee, the price of a beer at the bar. Just once a month, you pay that price one time for that. For this brilliance, folks. Now let's hear more about the brilliance of improv that is lost on some folks.
I think it's like they don't see people doing characters up there. But to add to what you said, I thought that was amazing. I think improv I started taking it because I wanted to get better at crowd work.
So
I was
that's again, like that's
improvisation.
In comedy.
Yeah. So I was like, and the thing I've learned the most about improv is how to get out of my, like, it's harder to do crowd work for me when I'm doing an open mic because I'm doing all new stuff. And then I have to think about all this new stuff and remember it. When I'm at a showcase, it's easier because now I remember all this stuff.
Yeah.
But it's about getting comfortable. Like, improv is about, let me stop thinking about what I want to say and let me listen to what the person is saying.
And acknowledge
and
it.
then let me bounce off of that.
Yep.
And because then if I'm thinking right now, if I'm in this podcast and I'm listening to what you're saying, but I tune out halfway through, I got an answer locked in. I'm not going to listen to the rest of the things that you're going to say.
Right.
So it's like, let me listen to what he says and then let me like.
And that presence, like learning to be present
Exactly.
is again a key skill. Like not even just for like just for anything. Like when I perform, for me, like the presence is what makes it so powerful. Like I can feel myself in that moment more than ever. And that's what makes it so powerful. And so like, that is so. It just when I learned what improv was, I was like, oh, it all makes sense to me. I took an improv class and I didn't really like the way. Like I feel like just some of the exercises like kind of tick me off because it's like I don't need to mirror this person right now. Like, could we just like do an improv thing? Like I would kill that shit.
Yeah, just let me go up and let me like do my thing. Yeah, it feels like that sometimes. Like especially when you're taking turns in these long scenes. It's like yours is done, and then you got to watch somebody else, and you're like, dang, there's this other detail I can do. This other more object work, more this, and you're like, I want them to finish. I want them to be done. I want to go up. I want my moment. And
you know, like that is a cool thing too, though, is like it kind of teaches you to take those mental notes and like the long form improv, like what are they called? The Howards? What do they call them? I think that's what they're called. But when you do like the long form one and you bring it all together and it's like a 30-minute thing and it's a bunch of different scenes and they all are initiated differently, to me that's such a creative exercise because it's so abstract from like, even if I were to write a song or you're to write a joke, because you don't know what the rest of the group's gonna do. It's a herald. That's what it's called, not a Howard. It's a herald. But you don't know what the rest of the group is gonna do, and so you're just following in there. Again, it's like what you said. Like you just kind of go with whatever they say, and you're like, maybe you had a good idea, but they kept going, and now you have to go with whatever else they said.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's not an easy thing to do, and when you get stuck on ideas, that's actually usually what holds the group back, and you realize that through doing it, and you're like, oh, okay, so I do just have to go with the moment. And again, that's like all of life. That's also when you just talk to people and you're just hearing what somebody has to say to try to have a good conversation.
Exactly. Instead of just waiting for like, what's my story?
Exactly.
After what they say, which I'm trying to be very conscious of lately. Because, I'm usually the type of person who's like, you're telling me something, and I'm like, oh, dude, I have a great story that goes with that. And then it's like, no, let me just listen and let me ask more. I have one of my best friends is really good at asking questions.
I think that's a key skill, yeah.
Which is like, that's cool because then he learns a lot about people. And I'm like, let me stop talking about myself and ask people questions.
That's
you know?
easier said than done usually, because like in the moment you get excited and you're like, oh, I can connect this to these experiences I've had, and we can like have an experience here, and so that's why you do it. I think it's just like, I don't know how to describe it. I think like you get better at such things through doing them, just like any skill. Like that's actually kind of why I like doing a podcast, because it forces me to practice talking to people.
Yeah.
And you get better at it. You talk to someone for 2 hours and then you do that over and over and over again. Eventually you'll get better at it. And like I think the people who learn the most do just ask the best questions. Like I really think that's true in life. And like that's when you learn from people. Like you said, like you know everything about yourself. I know how I could explain this about me, but it's when you ask someone the right question and they give you some answer you would have never come up with. That's when you really kind of grow and change and learn things.
Yeah, that's a really good point about like it's practice like anything. Like for me, I think you have an even better path because like you're doing it, like you're talking to people for these 2 hours constantly. I usually just thinking about it. Like I'm usually thinking like, let me listen more in the next conversation I have. Let me.
Well,
do
you know,
this.
a principle is who, what, when, where, why. Like that's a good way to look at it. Like any of those questions usually works best because they're open ended. So it's like if I want to ask you about your start with comedy. Oh, and how? Who, what, when, where, how? Who, what, when, where, why, how? It's all those. Because if I said like, so you got started in comedy like this, that's a whole different question than if I say, how did you get started in comedy? Or it's like, it's very open-ended. If I say like, how do you feel about this? Like, what do you want to do about this? Like, what do you think about this? Why do you think this? How do you think this? Who would you like to blah, blah, blah? Just for some reason, those questions are like more open-ended, and you're always going to get a better answer that way. I mean, like literally, that's just a great rule to have. It really works because that's where you're not like making an assumption. Usually I think the problem with like bad questions is that you're placing an assumption on top of the question, and you're like, I'm putting the answer in the question.
Exactly.
Right? And that's a whole different thing to ask somebody than like just saying like, how did you get started? Like, why do you want to do that? Then you're going to get the best answer because they actually want to tell you. People always want to talk about themselves. That's the
true.
other part.
That
of
is
it.
true, man. I was like, I'm gonna
People
go to
get
a
excited.
podcast. I get to talk about myself. That's gonna be crazy.
I'm waiting for someone to invite me on a podcast so I can have an excuse to talk about myself for 2 hours. I'm like, please, someone bring me on.
Oh, yeah.
I'm waiting for it.
I honestly think that's why some people do therapy as well. I think that some people just want to go into it because they want to talk about themselves, which is good.
No,
I think
that's actually
I
a good thing.
Yeah.
That's a good thing because, like, the thing is, I've heard a therapist say that, like, that their role is to just let the person talk for an hour sometimes and not even say much at all. Just let them talk because it's the stream of consciousness that's therapeutic.
Yes, I just have met people. It's cool. I just made the joke as I met people that I'm like, they seem pretty fine. I feel like they're just going to therapy because they want to talk about themselves for an extra hour during the week. And it's like, but it's a joke. I think if you're going, good for you, you know?
I think it's true, but it's also good.
Yeah, it's true. It's true and it's good. Yeah,
do it.
yeah, because then you get a professional helping you through the things that you are going through in life. Maybe you say something in there that you're just rambling, and they say, "Oh wait, there's something there that we need to talk about. Then we need to break down." So,
and that the thing about therapy too is it's about them helping you identify the processes in yourself that you can't see.
Yeah.
So by you saying all of those things, and then them being able to see that in you and point it out, you can see that process in yourself in a way that you couldn't see it. That's what's so I think like the problem with therapy is it's good and it's bad too, because it's really about the therapist you get.
That is
and a
so
lot
true.
of people get rubbed the wrong way.
Is so
they don't have a
true.
good therapist and they don't like the whole thing.
Yeah,
They just assume they'll have a bad therapist.
My
So.
first one, I've been to two. My first one, that was the issue, was that he would talk a lot about himself.
Yeah.
Like I would
It's like, what are we doing?
I
here?
would come in with a story and then he'd talk about, and the thing is like, okay, talk about yourself, but make it helpful. Like his stories, my whole thing was like relationship based that I ended up going like this relationship that was not good. And then he would talk about his relationship, but like the stories were just like, I don't know if he was trying to show off or like what was going on.
So I was driving in my Lamborghini.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's these pretty ladies with me. I'm like, dude. And I remember one day I was like, I had a mood swing. And I was sad. The one session I went with him, I was sad. And the next one, I was really happy about the same situation. And I was like, he's going to tell me this is not right, like that this mood swing. He said like you really have to deal with the thing. You didn't deal with it. You just one little good thing happened and now you're happy and you're ignoring all the other stuff. No, he immediately was like, hey dude, good for you. Like, and in my head I was like, no, I feel like we got to deal with a lot of stuff that I haven't. So that one I switched.
There's a disconnect here, man.
Yeah, the next one was a lot better. She was a lot better. Him, I was like, no, we're done.
Yeah. And that's kind of like, that's the part, you're paying a lot for these people. And that's the part that kind of sucks. And I can see how that would like make someone think, oh, therapy's just bad. And so I think there's like, but ultimately I think it's the idea of it and what it's supposed to do is good. I think people just get rubbed the wrong way.
It's the thing is that we're all human, right? So even a therapist, even a licensed professional will have their biases.
Yeah.
And so you just got to find somebody who's right for you. So I know that a lot now is very personalized. You can say like, I want my therapist to be, there's other things, male, female. Do I want them to be religious or not? Do I want them to be, like you can personalize it more, but I think you're very lucky if you get the perfect person, like, because
just
everybody
like
has
a relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's actually like hard. There's plenty of fish in the sea, you know, you
Yeah.
can get all kinds of people. I could get the crackhead from the train as my therapist. I don't know about this world.
Yeah.
I could get all kinds of things.
Dang.
Can you imagine that? You walk into the therapist office and they're just talking to themselves on a monologue. You're like, oh, this isn't good.
So by the way, you got some rocks? What are you talking about, bro?
I've seen this somewhere before. Yeah. I mean, I feel like being a therapist would be a really tough job because it's really about asking questions. That's really what the job is. It's like knowing how to ask those right questions.
And you got to keep your
pull it out.
biases under control.
Exactly.
Like you got to keep those. Like you're gonna maybe wanna, but no, let me remember my training.
Yeah.
And like, because
Yeah.
I feel like that's got to be the toughest part, man. Is keeping your biases under control.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But like that's kind of again with like the improv thing, truly. Like I think when I was reading about philosophy and I read about, I want to say, what was the first one? Is it not? It's not Aristotle. I'm mixing it up. The one that comes before Plato, Socrates, Mr. Socrates.
Yeah.
And Socrates came around and he was just asking those questions, those open-ended questions, and that became the Socratic questioning. I think that's what it is.
The Socratic method, or
The Socratic method, yeah. But that's what it is
know.
to ask questions. That's literally what it is. And he established that, 2,000 years ago? That was what he says. If you want to learn more about things, just ask questions. And like that really is the way to go. But that's so hard to do. And I mean, I don't know. It's kind of like you want to talk about the way you know things, but at the same time, like I think the truth is in between you and the other person. And like you might know, but they might know. Dude, that's a quote from somewhere. I'm paraphrasing, so I wish I came up with that one. But that really is like, that's true too. So like, say I know, even if I'm 99% right on everything and you're 1% right, there's somewhere between us that truth, that 1% of truth that you can give me. And that's actually what the fundamental thing is there, not the fact that I'm 99% right. Because I can still learn something from you. And I think that's like a great way to live life. And dude, it was, I was thinking, what was the profession we just mentioned where you have to do that with the questioning? Therapy, yeah. Because I was thinking also, like, you said that thing about training, and I was thinking, like, damn, I wonder if a therapist has as much training as a cop. That was one thing that went through my mind a second
cop
ago. Yeah, I wonder who gets more training.
No, I think a cop
is
was 6 months in his police academy?
Yeah.
A therapist is, well, if you're a psychologist, it's 4 years in college. And then you could do I have friends that are doing the clinical psychology doctorate. That's 5 years.
Damn.
So it's like,
and they still go to school after too, as they're like, I think they have to keep learning.
They get continuous education. Like engineers, we have to do that as well if we want to keep our license.
Yep, nurses. I know nurses are like that.
So I don't know how much they do, but yeah, the clinical psychology degree, which a lot of my friends are doing now, because I think with a regular psychology degree, like an undergrad, I don't know how much you can do. But when you have the clinical psychology one, that's like 5 years. That's 3 years in school and then 2 years of practice. Is what I take it with a grain of salt. And I know there's two paths. There's a research path, like the doctorate, the PhD, and then there's a clinical psychology. I want to have an office, a practice. So I have a friend that's doing that right now, and she's in her last year, and she's working for a woman's prison is her practice.
Woo!
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Orange is the new black.
Yeah, exactly.
Just imagine.
It's interesting, man.
Oh, that'd be like literally like a TV show, I bet. Like there's all kinds of crazy stuff. Because like That's actually like, it'd be like a honeypot for a therapy session. Like, you got all kinds of good stuff going on in there.
Yeah, that's like throw you off the deep end. You know?
Wow. So one thing I always think about with therapy too is like when I hear about the subconscious and like people like the psychologists who came around like Freud and then Carl Jung. Like those are the two I think about. I don't know how much you know about those two.
I know in the surface level. I think I'd like to think that I know a bit more because I know that Carl Jung came up with the shadow.
Yeah.
Which is like, I want to read his stuff. They say it's very difficult. Like it's very complicated.
Yeah. And there's like entry
not much
level.
is what I'll say. Not
if
much.
you look into it, there's like more entry level stuff that you can find. Like, and there's even audiobooks on YouTube. I want to say it's Man and His Symbols. That was the one that I was starting to listen to. I've never actually like read his books. I just know his ideas. I really want to read his books. I'm pretty much in the same spot as you with that.
Some of his ideas, yeah.
But dude, oh my God. Like these are the people who it's hard to think about now because we think like, oh, the subconscious is something we understand. And it's like, we know we have a subconscious that is like something that guides us differently than our conscious mind. Like we have a conscious mind that understands what's going on around us. And then we have a subconscious mind that's like only revealed to us in specific things like dreams and things like that. Like, and that's what Freud and Kant were saying is that your dreams are where you see a lot of the subconscious mind. And also in therapy, in like hypnosis and stuff like that, that's where you can see that subconscious mind really come out.
Yeah.
But other times you can't really see it. I actually think comedy, in a way, is like a form of hypnosis in such a way because like people get into that rhythm of like, oh, we're having a good time, I'm gonna laugh, and like there's a hypnosis in that. There's like a subconscious thing that's happening where I'm the person that's like in the audience and you're the funny guy and here we go, and like that's a whole different
you can get
state
them
of
locked
mind.
in. Yeah. So what I try to do sometimes in that order of things is I have a lot of these different bits, but I notice like what you said, like you can get people locked in, and one of the ways to do that is connect everything.
Oh,
is like
yes.
make it a story, because the thing is, if people have to restart with every new bit they can, and if that's your type of comedy, good for you. But if you're starting out, it's harder to get people's attention if you're going from bit to bit, unless you're like killing it at every single bit.
Yeah.
So what I try to do is I connect them. Stories that have nothing to do with each other, I'll try to find like, what's the segue between these two things? Like, for example, I have a story about my parents drinking sparkling water, and then I had a whole bit on this lady I had an encounter with at the grocery store.
Okay.
So I connected those by just saying, oh, my parents wanted sparkling water, so I went to the grocery store, and then I start telling the story about the lady at the grocery store. Those two stories have nothing to do with each other, but then I just connect them because people will, if they're engaged, if they're locked in already, that string is there, they'll keep going along that string with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they kind of feel like they're like, it's a whole experience. It's a whole thing.
It's a story. It's one thing that we're all following along from beginning to end.
Oh, and that's completely different than just having, hold on one moment. Let me make sure the cat's not. All right, good girl. Good girl. Sorry about that, folks. But yeah, so that is a different thing because it's kind of like, again, it's like if I was making a set list for a show, it's like I want everything to ebb and flow together. When I was in a band at one point, like that was kind of a thing too. It's like I always thought it was important to just go from each song into each song and not be these moments of like waiting and silence.
Yeah, because then you break that trance, quote unquote, of like, now I'm out of it again. Now you got to suck me back into it.
Exactly.
Like somehow.
And like when someone is doing really good on stage, the whole room feels that too. Again, like with the hypnosis thing, it's like a different vibe in the room. Everybody's like, damn.
Yeah.
Like,
and then even faces can work, like doing a silly face. I've always thought my favorite comedians are those who make it feel like they're just talking to their friends.
Yeah.
Like it just feels like this is how this person talks in their off time. Like it's so genuine. That brings me in even more because now I'm so engaged with you. And like, you're not talking at me, you're talking to me. Mm-hmm. And we're having this whole experience. And then comedy shows are better like that. When you see a comedian that just seems comfortable, like, you know, they have their script, right? But it just seems like they went up there and this is another part of their day.
Yeah.
This is just, they were being funny here. Now they're telling us a story, but they're going to continue being that way. And that is powerful. That's like, damn, this is a real experience we're all going through together. And then crowd work happens. And that brings me in even more because that's something special. That's something that just happened here for us. Like, that doesn't happen at every show. Like, he might do crowd work everywhere. But this specific bit of crowd work that he did that was just for us. That
Yeah.
brings people in even more. Now that's for us.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a great observation too. That it is about like the personality, because like that personality and being able to, I feel like it's almost like when people are just able to kind of channel themselves and be themselves on a stage, because it's not exactly themselves. It's usually it's like an exaggerated form
Exactly.
of that.
Yeah.
But that's what they're doing. They're just playing into those characteristics that they know are comedic, and they learn to hone that. And some people are really good at it.
Yeah.
And those people are, even if you observe the best comedians of all time, like a lot of them aren't super showy and super like gimmicky. Most of them are playing into who they usually are. Almost always.
Yeah.
Almost always.
Yeah, and you're so right. There's some people that do it to a higher degree than others. There's some people that are fully a character when they're up there. And then I've seen people that go up there, yell, scream. It's I don't know if you've seen Casey Rocket, the Casey Rocket type of comedy of like doing a little dance or like it's just, and then you talk to them after the show and it's like, hey, yo, man, what's up? Like it's super quiet. It's super, oh, I loved your set, dude. Thank you, man. It's really nice of you. And you're like, what is this? I am an exaggerated version of I would say boyish traits of like, because I have, one of my bits is I have a baby face. And so I'm 28 years old, but I look very young. So my character is mostly the baby face guy. Like I'm up there and I have like a very warm, kid-like energy. That's my character. It's like, but I'm usually like that in life. I'm very, very easygoing, happy with people, very curious about things. I do exaggerate it when I'm up there, obviously. Like I'm smiling more, I'm laughing more. But a lot of people, that's the best compliment I've got is a lot of people tell me, you seem like the exact same person on and off stage. So that's nice, but it is exaggerated. It's like you said, everybody's exaggerating a little bit. Because I do get angry and I do get pissy and I do get like in my thing. But up there, I'm just this happy-go-lucky, the world is wonderful, childlike sense of wonder kind of comedy.
That's hard to know what that is. I feel like that'd be, because I really like that you're putting it into words. Because I've always thought, like, if I were to do comedy, and I tell myself no, I probably shouldn't.
You should.
You think I should?
You should, man. You just got to do it.
I know I could do it, but the problem is I feel like it would take away from my rapping, and that's the problem. I feel like I'm the best rapper of all time.
Okay.
So
okay. All right.
If I just squander that, what am I doing with my life?
You
That's
gotta
kind of the problem. Maybe I could do comedy, but what I was gonna say is that would probably be my approach. That would definitely probably be my approach. I would just be myself, and even if people didn't laugh, I'd be like, well, I was being myself. So I mean, like, it can't be that bad.
No, and to what you said is a very good point. We have a limited amount of bandwidth.
Yeah,
that we can give.
Absolutely. Some
we have
people
a little
spread
bit
themselves thin.
Yeah, I have my day job. I want to go to the gym after that. I want to do comedy. Sometimes even for skits, when people call me, I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Because that now I have to think about something else that's not going to go in my comedy. So we have a limited amount of brain space. I think sometimes that my RAM is full. I'm like, dude, I can't. Sometimes I feel they call it the comedy brain, right? When you start doing comedy, whenever you start doing anything, you're a rapper, right?
Yeah.
You're probably usually coming up with lyrics.
Yeah.
Because you've already got your brain in that rhythm.
Yeah.
Of let me think about lyrics, melodies. So I'm a musician. I did music. I do music still, but I do a lot less now because I want to focus on comedy. Back in the day when I made music, melodies would come to my head all the time.
Yeah.
I would sit on the piano. Now because I'm doing comedy, that's kind of gone. Very rarely. So what you're saying is true. It's a very good concern. If you want to push your rap as far as you can, give it as much bandwidth. But if you have the space to do comedy, do it. I just have my day job. I want to exercise. I want to do comedy as well. And that's already like a 13-hour day. Like,
yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
And then like my problem is I would probably obsess over the comedy if I really did it. I'd go up there and I would do it. I'd be like, oh, that could have been better. And then I would like that. I would start thinking about jokes. My brain would like start to turn over.
You would switch to comedy brain instead of rap brain.
Yeah.
And
maybe both would be good. Maybe it's overthinking, and maybe both would actually benefit one another. Just like the engineering benefits the comedy. It could be the same exact thing. And if you just connect the two things in some fun ways.
Yeah.
You know,
and maybe
you
your brain, no, definitely your brain works different than mine, right? Maybe you can handle it. Maybe you are the person who's like, I can do rap, I can do comedy, I can switch my brain between one thing and the other. It's just, I'm saying that was a very valid concern.
Yeah, it'd be hard. It'd be hard. Because like, again, people spread themselves thin. People want to be 10 different things at once.
Exactly.
Like some people want to be a filmmaker and a photographer and a comedian and a musician and a model and a this and a that. And it's like, you're very ambitious, but at the same time, like, oh my God.
Yeah, no, it's you can't do all of it. I think you can spread yourself too thin. That's a very real thing. We are limited as much as we want to do everything. There's no such thing as free lunch. That was my favorite thing I learned in physics class, right? Like you can't create or destroy energy, and there's always moving somewhere is going to cost you something. It's going to cost you energy. And there's in economics, it's called the cost of opportunity. Doing one thing costs you not doing the other thing.
But I think like there's a balance to that even because you could get so deep into thinking that way that you trick yourself into not doing anything at all.
Not doing anything else. No, it's a balance. You got to balance it out. If I ever did a TED Talk or anything, it'd be about balance, right? You got to find that balance, but you got to know that there is a limit to how much you can spread yourself.
Absolutely. And it's finding whatever that is, because like you can only do so. You have whatever interests you have to figure out which ones are the most important.
Yeah. If I could leave my job tomorrow and have enough money to just do comedy, I know I would be back doing music as well. Because now I need to be doing something throughout the day. I need to fill out 8 hours. I have that mindset. So I know that if I got out of that job and I had financial security, I could be doing music for some hours of the day, then doing comedy for some hours of the day. Because now my brain is free of that thinking, because again, 8 hours of my day are in my job, and I have to be thinking about that. Sometimes I wonder, what could I do with all that extra space, you know? So I know I could do, I don't know like what you do during the day when you're not doing rapping or anything, but if you have enough time, dude, by all means, if you are curious about it, I think you should do comedy.
Yeah. I have like little lists of things, and I know I have like, my personality is probably geared for it. Like I've already thought that. Like I'm this kind of I make people laugh on accident because I just say stupid shit. Like I know for a fact all I need to do is just do that, be that person.
I read
it's not that hard.
I read if you're already funny, I read a really good book called Zen and the Art of Stand-Up Comedy. Really easy read. And one of the things it says, and it might, you take it how you will, right? I think it's true, is that if you're already funny, anybody who's funny, like if you can make your friends laugh, you can learn the art of stand-up comedy.
Yes.
It's when you're not funny at all, even if you take the classes, even if you take, it's going to be a lot hard. It's a lot harder that way. You could probably do it, but it's a lot harder. But if you're already funny, you can hone the skills to become a stand-up comedian.
Yeah.
It's just about finding the right wording, the right angle. But if you're already funny, it's there. You just got to, it's that chaos in your mind that you got to shape. And
And and like I think like it's a fun thing to idealize, but I think in practice it's a whole different exercise. Like, oh, I could do jokes, I could do stand-up, I'm funny, but that's not the same thing as going on stage and crafting 5 minutes and making that work. And then like you said, a showcase, you practiced all that stuff by then, so that's a whole different thing. That's like I've been doing these jokes for months and months and months, and I know what my best material is.
It's
and then
so nice though when you finally get up there and you see all that work come together. But you're a rapper, man. I mean, you didn't start out, I mean, you say you're the greatest rapper, right? You didn't start out making great raps. Like,
no.
You probably started out, so it's like that. It's a craft, it's a muscle that you got to keep working and working and working. And like you said, I have friends that want to do it, and they're like, oh, but when I get a better set, you're not going to know what your set's like till you go up there and do it, man.
Absolutely.
You know, you got it. And if you crash and burn, by all means, dude, it builds thick skin. And then you just got to take the bombs. If any comedians are watching this, the way you got to take bombs is just like, I need to get back up there immediately, as soon as I can, and like the next day. Like if you take it like, I'm done with this. Like no, you got to take it as a challenge. Okay, I failed today, quote unquote. You didn't fail. You just found a joke that doesn't work, or that you got to do in a different manner. It's good to find things out by knowing what you shouldn't do. So then you just get back up there, man, and you keep doing it. But I think you should try it out, man.
Yeah,
you might get obsessed.
And it teaches you what not to do. Is kind of the wisdom in bombing. Is like what was wrong. Sometimes it wasn't even entirely you. It's just that you didn't catch that room that right way. Like those jokes worked, but it wasn't in that room where they were gonna work. It was somewhere else, and you had to follow whatever that room was. Because I've noticed, like even these little open mics, it's like a room with 3 people in it sometimes. Like you need to do the jokes geared towards the 3 people in the room. Don't act like you have an audience of like 25 people. Like treat it like it's a 3-person room.
Yeah, man.
Treat it like you're in the back of a bar
Yeah.
and you're shouting jokes at people, because that's what you're doing right now.
Yeah. And all those little variables, I mean, I don't know if you've gotten that from just going to comedy shows or from your rapping, but those are all very good observations. These are all variables that you got to deal with.
And that's fun.
And also
it's
know your
almost the fun
audience.
part of it. Like you said about Zen and the art of stand-up comedy, you're accepting the reality you're in.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're letting that be that. You're flowing with that moment, whatever it is.
Yeah, and read your read your audience. Like, there's also good advice is going to open mics. Don't go do something else while the open mic is happening. Try to see the other people.
And people
see what people react
People do
to.
notice that you're hanging out there too. They do notice, and that gives them a good impression of you. Like even if you're the kind of person who's like, oh, I just want to stand outside, it really does do a lot just hanging out,
Just hanging out there,
people.
laughing.
And like
when
you're saying, you do want to see their material. You do want to see what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like you,
and then you can test the audience that way. You can see like, oh, what worked for this audience? Was it dark humor? Was it dating humor?
That's a great point.
Was it day-to-day humor? Like, what are they reacting to? It happened to me where a buddy of mine, all he did was dark humor. All he does is dark. All he does, and it's good. He's good at it. But then, for example, we'd go to showcases where it was a lot of couples. It was like a lot of boyfriends, girlfriends, and I told. And one day he just did not do well because he was doing all these jokes that were dark. A lot of them were like man-woman based, and then you could see the girls were like. They didn't like them. And who brought these girls to the show? Their boyfriends are probably the ones who brought them, right? So if she's not having a good time, he's
a whole
not
bunch
gonna,
of bad dates.
Yeah, he's not going to have a good time. You're going to do terrible. So it's like, read your audience. And I told them, dude, you just got married. Tell stories about your marriage. Talk about that. They can probably relate to like your relationship stuff. Yeah. So it's like, you see a lot of couples, let me do dating stuff. Maybe they'll like that. So it's like a reading your audience kind of thing.
Yeah.
If you have a bunch of drunks and do jokes about partying and drinking, I don't know, like, just try to connect.
That again, though, like, probably easier said than done. And probably it's like goes back to what you said about how some people are just funny. Like it's some people don't have that like, oh, I know how to go with what this room is. Like they don't have that that thing in them, and they have to learn to do that.
Or they're stubborn. Yeah, they just want to do their jokes maybe. And that's by all means, it's like get your vision out there. The most important thing is I like giving people advice if they ask me and I taking it. In the end, it's your vision.
Yeah.
I don't live inside your brain. I don't see the potential in what you're doing as much as you see it.
Yeah.
So get your vision out there, dude. Do whatever you want. It's just these little things sometimes I see and I'm like, this is a synergic art form. Like comedy's a very synergic art form. It's you and the audience.
Synergistic?
Synergistic. Whatever. Yeah. Spanish is my first language. That's my excuse.
Hey, synergistic's like a 5-star word right there.
It is a Sunday. It's a good Sunday word. It's a very synergistic art form. I think more than music because in music, when you play a good song, and it's like tight. It's a tight song. Maybe the person just not their taste, right? But it's a good song. It was played right, and you did it right. In comedy, it's like everybody's humor is so different. And like the mood is different. The mood is different between every show you go to. I might not be making too much sense, but you really got to learn how to read the audience, have fun with it, and try to connect. Try to connect with them.
Are there any shows in particular that come to your mind where you had to read that audience and go with that moment? Like maybe you learned this principle in these shows. Like, are there any shows that come to mind where you really had to do that?
There's some open mics that do not like dark humor at all.
So that's a big one.
That's a big one. Like dark humor is a big one you got to be careful with. Like I don't do much of it. Like my comedy's pretty tame. For the most part, from what I see. But even some of my jokes, I've been to mics where it's just not welcome.
Right.
That's like, read your audience. This is not the place to do it. And there's mics here in Chicago that people already know that. It's like, if you go to this mic, don't do these jokes. If you go to this mic, there's others that are the complete opposite. Do the darkest jokes you can. That's what they like here.
Yep.
So there are those. But I do usually at open mics, till the very last second, will change my set. Like I have my notes, I have all my bits, but then somebody talks about something, I see the audience reacts a lot to that. I'm like, okay, they're reacting a lot to this kind of topic, not so much dark. So
these guys really love when boyfriends cheat on their girlfriends.
Exactly. Let me talk about all those times. No, it's just joking. But then I switch it till the very end. I don't switch all of it, but some of it I'm like, I'm gonna go with my Puerto Rico set today. Let me have people get to know me, tell my stories about Puerto Rico. Today let me talk about dating stories. Today let me talk about work stories, about colleagues, about friends. Yeah.
Okay.
Switching it up.
And you feel it out.
Yeah.
And that's a good way to do it too. Yeah. I've heard like other comedians say that. I don't know if you're familiar with Harlan Williams. but I've heard him say that like he likes to like write at least one joke that he's gonna do right there, right then, like while he's sitting in the back watching everybody go up, like every single time. He's been doing comedy for what 30 years now.
Like he'll write a new joke.
He'll write a new joke while he's in the room, like just, and that's very similar to what you said.
That's
I mean,
powerful.
it's like feeling it out and being like, oh, what's gonna work in here? I heard one time somebody said, I'm sure you know Norm Macdonald.
Of course.
So Harlan Williams came up in the same comedy scene as Norm Macdonald in Toronto, and like I think they were close friends, and like you can see a lot of that similar kind of humor in Harlan Williams that Norm Macdonald has.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of, I'm trying to remember the reason I'm bringing this up. I mean, a lot of the way that he does his jokes is very, I forgot what the fuck I was saying. I mean, I know at least with Harlan Williams, he definitely has that same like comedic style. And matter of fact, it's kind of like goes back to what you were saying before about like being yourself. Like someone like Norm Macdonald or Harlan Williams are so good at being themselves and being comfortable. Like they're just being silly a lot of the time. Norm Macdonald, though, in particular, he could come up with ways to get away with saying things.
Dude, what's that one
Nobody
joke?
could say.
He has that one joke about the moth that he goes on for 5 minutes.
That's a legendary
And
Norm
it's like,
Macdonald
dude,
bit.
like
On
only
Conan
he
O'Brien.
could do that. Only
Yeah.
he could do that.
Yes, and like literally the joke is that not even the punchline, it's the entire telling of the joke because it's all in the way.
Oh, because the light was on, like at the very end of it. But it's the way he says it, his energy. So it makes you feel like you're talking to a friend. Like this
Yeah.
guy is. I'm just sitting at a table with that. He's telling a story, and he just hooks you in. He's amazing. He
Yeah.
was amazing. R.I.P.
And he could tell dark humor anywhere.
And get away with it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Somehow he could
Yeah.
manage to bring that same humor everywhere.
Energy is a huge part of that. I think Anthony Jeselnik talked about it recently. Like obviously, you know, he's one of the darkest dudes. Like his misdirects are just the darkest jokes ever.
Yeah.
But he said that, you know, there's a lot of comedians now that they try to be edgy. You can be edgy if you're being honest. If this is an actual joke that came up, if you're just trying to be edgy for being edgy, it's not gonna work. You're just trying to get something off your chest. Anthony Jeselnik said the art is when they let you get away with it. Is when you do it so well they let you get away with it. And a lot of that is energy and being clever. If you're being edgy but the joke was clever, okay, this made me laugh. And your energy. There's something about the way you say things that lets people know they're messing around.
Yeah.
You know? But also I wouldn't try that at new open mics, I would say. Do whatever you want. I can't do it at new open mics. When I try my edgy stuff, people already are like, ugh.
Yeah.
When I have longer sets, give me a second. I think it's gone.
God
There it is.
bless you, sir.
Thank
Continue.
In longer sets, once people trust you and they feel your energy, like especially mine, which is like I get the very happy-go-lucky, boyish kind of thing. Then when I start doing edgier stuff towards the 7-minute, 8-minute mark, and again, it's pretty tame. They're like, oh, but with that face of like this guy, like, you know, it's funny. It was kind of dark, but we know you're just messing around.
Because you already won him over.
Yeah, and you have that
Yeah.
good energy. You can let people, not everybody, right? Not everybody's gonna catch that, but there's a way to bring people in with your energy and let them know, guys, we're just having fun here. Like, this is fun. Do some self-deprecation. That always helps. Yeah.
It is hard to like win over a room. I think like comedy, again, like it's so integral and like music, you don't have to do that. Music, you can go over and you can just kind of do your thing.
Yeah.
Comedy, you have to win them. You have to like show them like, yo, I'm cool. I'm just like you guys.
I'm just messing around here. So a lot of my sets I will start when it's like newer audiences, I will start with like some lightly self-deprecating things. Not too much, because then sometimes people get sad if you do too much self-deprecation.
Like,
They're like,
oh, this guy hates himself.
this guy, is he happy? Like, what's going on here? And that's happened to me. Sometimes especially guys will say some self-deprecating stuff, and I'm like, dude, I want to hug you right now, bro.
Yeah.
I'm here.
Yeah.
But you start with some lightly self-deprecating stuff. They're like, he doesn't take himself too seriously. They don't take themselves too seriously. And then, but get that trust first, man. It's all about like that first joke. It's first impressions. Comedy is first impressions. In those open mics, that first time, it's hard to recover sometimes from a bad first impression.
Yeah. You're probably just fumbling around for the next couple minutes.
Yeah,
Just
you
like,
already said the worst joke. Like,
these people.
you got deeply
me.
political, and then people are like, we don't like this guy at all. Get off this stage. And that's the only thing worse to me than that was my only rule when I went into comedy. My first open mic was like, when you see somebody bomb, it's okay. Like the only thing for me that's worse than bombing is when you can see them crack under that pressure.
Yeah.
When their voice starts stuttering and they're like, that to me it breaks my heart to see it. It's like, oh no, like this is, so that was my one rule was like, if I bomb, if I do something wrong, go through it with a smile. Do not let them know you are dying inside, because that's what it feels like. You're dying inside.
And if they don't know, it's actually like they just don't know.
Yeah.
Like if they never told you, then you never knew. Like you just don't realize it. You're just watching them and you're thinking like, oh, they're going through this just fine. And then actually, like, even I think subconsciously, it's kind of a fake it till you make it kind of thing.
It is.
It makes you feel better about the experience, even though you had that same feeling of, oh, this isn't going well. At least you didn't like act that out in front of all those people.
That really at least for me, it makes me want to look away. When I see somebody crack, I'm like, look at the floor. Because I don't want them looking at me and looking for my approval. I'm like, dude, I don't know what to say.
I don't want to see the pain in their eyes.
Like, I'll fake laugh or something, because it truly is a humbling experience to bomb. It is very humbling. I wish it on everyone. It should happen to everyone, but I really wish it happens to
bomb. Great comedians, like that's the other thing about it is great comedians who are like well established that you probably love. They still bomb sometimes.
Yeah.
They go out and they try new stuff and it doesn't go well.
Yeah.
Like, it happens to all of us. It's
true.
Just like how you said, like, oh, you didn't start music being the greatest rapper ever. No one starts comedy being the greatest comedian ever. People are like 10 years into their career and they're still not as good as they could be. And like, it's crazy when you hear comedians say, like, I've been doing comedy for 18 years and they just got popular 4 years before. And that's like a usual story. It takes a long time to make it in that kind of industry. And there's kind of a reason for it. You get more and more comfortable and you get better and better the longer you do it.
Yeah.
Like, and finding that rhythm and finding that how you find things. Like, how do I read this room and how do I establish my sense of humor in a way that makes sense, that distinguishes me from other people? And like all of that is like a mystery, because it's an art form. It really is.
It is. And yeah, like I think bombing gets better with time, because then at least you know.
Yeah, you've been through this before.
Yeah, and you know, what I do sometimes is I just watch tape of old good shows. I'm like, I'm good at this. Like that's not. If I bomb a few times in a row, it's like, let me watch a few good tapes to remind myself, like
the good old days.
The glory. It'll and it's like a wheel, right? Sometimes you're at the bottom, sometimes you're at the top.
Yep.
But wherever you are, just know that the opposite is coming soon.
Yeah. If you're doing great, you might suck soon.
You
so
might suck
enjoy
soon
it.
once. Hopefully you don't. Hopefully you do great. And the best way to do great is to give every show your 100%. Because another thing I've noticed is when I get cocky, when I get way too many good shows in a row, and then I come into one like, it's fine, I'm gonna make them laugh. That's when I bomb. Because I came in with that energy, like I thought I was better than the show.
Wow.
And again, that transmits. Because now instead of like actually engaging with people and doing my jokes, I'm just talking at them. I'm doing a laundry list of jokes. Oh, this one's funny. This one's funny. And then people are like,
yeah,
your energy's not great, bro.
Because
like,
they feel like they're just going through the motions with you.
Exactly.
Like it's not really a dynamic experience.
Yeah.
It's not what you were saying before, where you're feeling them out and you're seeing what's going on
and you're
here.
engaging.
Instead, you were all in your own head and you just brought whatever you brought inside of there and thought it was, yeah. And like, that's again that Zen thing too. I think like you can get so encapsulated in your own vision that you miss that moment that's right in front of you.
Exactly. You're not present.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, what's next after this? No, be there. People came out to see you.
Yeah.
Even if it,
and that moment's not going to come back.
Exactly.
It's not going to exist in any other form. Like, you're gonna do it whatever you're gonna do, and it's gonna live on forever as what it was. So if you don't capture it, it's
gone.
I mean,
you can't go back.
The intro to "Lose Yourself" by Eminem. There's a lot of wisdom right there. Okay.
Yeah.
You capture this moment, or you let it slip, bro. Eminem was onto something.
Dude, he was cooking. He was cooking
right there.
Yeah, no, and respect the people who were there too, man. They came. You might be a Monday night. You can make their night a lot better.
Yeah,
you know, you could. If you bomb, at least bomb with commitment, right? like
go down with that shit.
Exactly. Hey, he bombed, but he gave it his all.
Yeah,
you know, he went down swinging. I hate it when I bomb when I just told you. That's because I came in too cocky. Like I could have done better. Gladly, that's not happening as much anymore. Sometimes it's just that you get in this routine and you're like, this is next open mic, whatever. Not even cocky, maybe just disconnected.
Yeah.
And you go up there and you're like, these jokes work. I'm gonna get out of here. That's worse. If I bomb but I committed, I feel good about that. I'm like, I give my all. I did all the emotions. I talked to people. Bombed. I studied for the test. I just still got an F. You know?
And that's okay.
And that's okay because I studied. I did as much as I could. My mom always said, she's like, I'd rather you get an F where you studied your butt off than if you get a B and you just lazed around without studying.
Yeah.
I was like,
I
all
say
right.
A for effort. That's what I say.
A for effort?
Yeah. Because for real, I mean,
Exactly, yeah.
as long as you try, I mean, that really is what matters, folks.
Exactly.
At least you
got to
try.
show you care
Yep.
about this.
And sometimes it's actually like there's a beauty in failure. There truly is. Like
Yes.
there's something about failing that's actually good for you. It's like it's what makes winning feel good. You got to lose sometimes to win.
Exactly.
You really do, because those nights that you go out and it's like, oh, this wasn't a good show. Oh, that kind of sucked. Yeah, that's because it sucks. It sucks for it to be that night. But that night when it's great and you're like the guy, you're walking out like, damn, bro, I'm the coolest guy ever.
Yeah, because you know what it feels like to be
Exactly.
not doing great.
And if you didn't know what that was, you would have no idea the beauty of the moment you're in when you're winning. You wouldn't even know the difference.
Yeah.
And it's like the yin and yang of life forever.
That reminds me of like that is beautiful. That is wisdom right there. That reminds me of like when you have when you can't breathe through your nose.
Yeah. Oh my
and like
God.
that
it's
old
the
joke
worst.
of like, and then when you kind of finally can, you're like, I appreciate this. This is I'm never gonna be ungrateful for this again. This is a good place to be in.
Yeah. I was listening to the author, I think it's David Green. He's written some really good books. He was on Andrew Huberman's podcast. And
Oh, love Huberman.
Oh, you do? Yeah.
Dude.
Dude, Andrew Huberman's the shit.
Dude, he's the man.
Oh my God. Like
Daddy.
if you and your wife ever leave one another, I've got a contender for you. I've got an eligible bachelor.
Andy, I'm here for you.
But that dude is, for one, like, I just respect him so much because literally he's just giving free education to everybody. Like, I mean,
Yep.
probably one of the best podcasts I've ever found ever,
Yep.
just because of how valuable it is. But Robert Greene, not David Green, Robert Greene. And Robert Greene was on his podcast, and he's written like the 48 Laws of Power and a few other books.
Yeah.
Very famous author. And he was on there, and I guess at the end of his podcast, he was saying that he had his stroke and he can't use his legs anymore the same way, and he can't do something else anymore the same way. And he was just talking about like how he'll look out his window and he'll see people riding by on bikes and like walking their dog, and he'll just think like, oh my God, if I could just walk a dog right now, I'd be so thankful. And the only thing I can tell people as that person is to just think of me when you're doing something like that, and think of what it would be like, how your life can just change in a moment. Like he had this stroke and then boom, at least he's still alive. Like he's thankful he's alive, but he can't do the things he used to do. And it makes you appreciate life in a completely different way. Like it really makes you reconsider the value of everything that is before you and how that is just all right here, right now. I try to always remind myself of that. Like you could look, there's just two ways to look at things. Like I could look at it like, oh my God, like what's going on here? Or I could be like, well, it's kind of nice. There's some pros here.
Yeah, like what's that song? If you can't change your situation, change your perspective, right?
Absolutely.
Things aren't great for everyone, right? Things are bad for a lot of people, but for a lot of us, it's like I have two eyes, I have two legs.
Exactly.
I can breathe correctly without needing a machine attached to me.
And when you think about that, and then you think about bombing, it's like,
yeah,
all right, well,
nothing. But yeah, I remember as a kid, I would watch all these shows where like there were scenes where babies would be born and be like, oh, you got a healthy baby boy. And it's like, why do they always say healthy? Why is that? And then you realize how many things can go wrong in a birth.
yeah.
And you're like, and then you realize health is such a blessing. Like being healthy and being able to do all the things we can do is such a
Wow.
blessing. So yeah, in the midst of all that, bombing is not that bad.
It's really actually like bombing's fun.
Yeah.
If you look at it like that, bombing's actually a good time.
Yeah, it's like being rejected by a girl that you wanted to talk to. It's
Yeah.
like, it's humbling, but you know, I got to get back out there. I got to try my best again. And at least I could try. At least I tried.
Yeah.
At least I went out there and I tried to say something, you know?
What's the I guess I'll just go to like what's your joke writing process like? How does it work for you? Is there a certain process when you're trying to come up with a joke, or does it kind of just come to you in different ways?
Different ways. So, very good question. Usually it's, there's a few different ways actually. It might be I'm having conversations with friends and something funny came up.
Yeah.
I try not to acknowledge it because then it kind of ruins the moment. I'll just write a little note. This was the topic. I'll break it down later.
Nice.
Another way is the random things that come into my head. I'll write them down. Another one is stories that happened in my life that were funny. And I try to write them down, all of them now, because I'm like, not only is this good for comedy, but I should start writing down things that happen in my life because So I'm going to be old and I might forget, right? So a lot of it lately has been stories that I've been remembering from my childhood. Like I just remembered one recently where there was a marble fever in my school. And I kind of took over the school with it. I started with 5, ended up with like 300 marbles. And so there was a few funny stories in there of how like beat people out of their marbles, like playing. But just things like that where I remember.
That's a crazy concept.
Yeah. Like it was like
this is real life.
Yeah, the whole bit is about like this was my first introduction to basically capitalism. How I started with little and I took over, but then I started abusing like people. Like there was this one girl who had 7 marbles, and I beat her and I took all of them. When I say beat her, I beat her at the game, is what I mean. And then she started crying, and I was like, no. So I gave them back to her. So just stories like that I remember. But usually it's I'll write a line down and then I'll break it down later.
The marble hierarchy.
Dude, I had this one big one I got. Oh, that was unfair. And then I'll break it down and then I'll say it out loud a lot of times.
Yeah.
If I say it out loud a lot of times, things start coming up.
What, do you mean like talking to yourself?
Yeah.
Like literally you just
I'll be in my
like,
room doing the bits.
Nice.
And I've realized, I don't know if it's a tradition or a ritual or something, but I cannot do jokes that I have not said out loud. Every single time I try it, I fail.
Wow.
If I write something on the train and I go, oh, maybe I don't fail. It's just not as good as I thought it was going to be.
Interesting.
I have to say it out loud a bunch of times in my room so things come up.
You have to engineer it first.
My man. And then record it, listen to it a bunch of times.
Yeah.
Because then the more you listen to it, now it's ingrained in your head. Now I don't have to really think about it at all. I can add things to it.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's interesting. You kind of get like a rhythm down in a way.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is supposed to be like this. Whereas if you're just doing it in the moment, it doesn't come off in such a way. It's interesting because it is like you wouldn't think that you'd have to rehearse it like that. I'm sure it's just the way your brain is. Like other comedians probably don't do that, and then there are other comedians probably do. It's
I know.
probably just
Yeah,
a
most of them
different-
don't. Most of them I tell them this, and they're like, no. A lot of comedians are very good about writing stuff on the train there.
Wow.
And then they say it there. I have a friend here, shout out to Natalie Whalen. She's very good about some things just happened in her day, and she'll just say those jokes, and they work.
That's probably how I would be. Because, I mean, like, I can write music on the train and not even do it, like, vocally. And then as soon as I do it vocally, I already know how it's supposed to go. It's just, like, it just kind of comes out the way I was envisioning it. But I guess, like, it's just a different, like, it's almost like you have to know the rhythms of a performance. Like, I have to know, like... Even if I am the guy who can go out there and do it in that moment, you do kind of get the bit down better the more and more you do it. You're kind of starting earlier.
Yeah.
You're just starting without the audience having to witness the first try. That's really
Exactly.
the difference.
And the thing is, I think what's different about my comedy from a lot of people, I don't know if it's not different from most people I know. I use a lot of hands and a lot of cadence in the voice.
Yeah.
But those are things I'm thinking about. So then probably that's why I do it out loud in my room, because like I want one thing to be automatic. I want one thing to already be super ingrained in case I have to think of, I always think about like variables, right? How many variables am I dealing with right now? It's that engineering brain. Am I dealing with the movement, with the bit, and with the cadence? And then I'm trying to do crowd work. That's going to be a lot for me today. What can I get there done? Like the words themselves. Is that script already there? I don't have to think about that. I know all the words. So then that's one less variable I have to deal with. And then at a showcase, the words, the cadence, the hands, they're already done because these are bits that I've done so many times. Now I can think about crowd work.
Wow.
Because now the rest of it is solved. I don't even have to think about that. It's just like a file in my folder that I just bring out, pop, and it's there.
Yeah, and that's actually like the more and more you have of those, the easier it is because you could whip different ones out at different times.
Exactly.
Like, I mean, even like with music, I've learned I got to expand my library a little bit because just with like a cappella raps, right? People sometimes say to you, they'll just be like, hey, give me a rap. Like, just, can you rap for us right now? And if I don't have something to whip out on them right there, right then, I missed that moment. Just same thing with comedy. Like, oh, I can go up for 3 minutes. Like, what is my best 3 minutes I could do right here, right now? And then you just piece that together real quick, as fast as possible.
And that was here. Chicago was the first time I ever did 3 minutes. So in Amsterdam, it was 5 minutes minimum.
Yeah.
So here was the 3 minute muscle.
Just
was
because the amount of people here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And especially Laugh Factory, these open mics that a lot of people go to, right?
They only, is it 3 minutes at Laugh
The
Factory?
open mic is 3 minutes. Is 3 minutes. Yeah. If you do showcases, you get a lot more time. But I remember first time I went, I got in through a reference, somebody got me in there. When I moved from Amsterdam, some Chicago comics saw me there, and then got me into the open mic with a guaranteed spot. So I asked the girl who hosted it, Grace Baylor.
Baller.
She was like, "Oh, it's 3 minutes," and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like I've never done 3 minutes, so I had to write down my one-liners. It went well. It went really well.
Yeah.
That first time. The next few, I struggled more, but now I have my 3-minute sets. It's like what you said. I have to have, what's my repertoire? These are my 5 minutes. These are my 3. These are my 12.
Yep.
There's a comedian here that was talking about his hour. He talked about his hour. He says, I have my hour, but when I do a 20-minute set, I'm just giving you the tip of the iceberg for these 10 bits I have. That's 20 minutes. If I dove deep into those bits, the whole story, then you get the whole hour. But yeah, everybody has their own way of organizing it.
Yeah. An hour's a lot. Too.
Hour's a lot, man.
How long was your showcase?
12 minutes.
12 minutes.
Yeah. Most I've done is 15.
Okay.
I'm doing 20 minutes now. I have to go back to Amsterdam because I won a competition in Amsterdam in the Netherlands right before I moved. I won a competition, so I'm gonna be on a festival they have there.
What was the competition?
The English Comedy Talent Award at the Utrecht International Comedy Festival.
Okay.
And I won. It was 90 comedians. I was lucky enough to end up winning the judges' vote. There was a judge vote and an audience pick. Audience pick, also a hilarious guy from Siberia named Igor Fergachev. So I ended up winning, so now I have to go back in March to the Netherlands to perform at the festival, 20 minutes.
Nice. In the Netherlands.
Yeah, man.
Have you ever performed out of this country?
So I lived there last year in Amsterdam.
Oh,
yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
You moved from Amsterdam to here, and then, but you performed. How long were you performing there for?
So just a year. So I started doing comedy August of last year.
Yeah.
August 2024. So
I
was
long
there
before you moved.
11 months. I moved the next June.
Okay.
So 10 months. So yeah, I did comedy. I started doing comedy there in August, and then that competition was in July. So close to my 1-year anniversary of comedy. That was it. So I think it was the perfect ending to my time there. But now I get to go back. So yeah.
Wow. And then are you like, was there a difference in like a learning curve? Because you were doing comedy there. I have to imagine the people's sense of humor was different there as when you came here. Like I'm sure there was a big kind of switch, or no? Was it?
I would say it's not huge because a lot of things I talk about are kind of universal. And American comics that went over there do pretty well.
Okay.
The only times they don't do well is when they overestimate how much people know about what's going on in U.S., like politics and stuff like that. Like the world knows, but the only mistake I would see them making was when they overestimated like references from TV. I'm like, you're going too deep into American culture right now. Like they don't know this much. They know a lot about the U.S. They know that much.
These people do not know who Piers Morgan is. Okay.
What's the other guy from here? The equivalent of Piers Morgan. I forget his name.
Don Lemon, maybe. I don't know.
Don Lemon was a CNN one. There was a Fox News guy that got fired. I don't know. Whatever.
Oh, Tucker Carlson.
That guy. Yeah. That guy.
These people do not. Well, trust me. We're not talking about Tucker Carlson right now.
No,
they don't know.
But the difference in learning curve, I would say, was over there. I think over there it's a much safer place to grow.
Yeah.
And when I say safer, I mean in the sense of you're not gonna get discouraged. Like I think if you start here, I've been told that in New York it's almost impossible to start at this point. And as an open micer because it's so saturated that you really gotta have a lot of patience and a lot of tenacity because you're gonna be in rooms for 2 people, 3 people. Over there, what was different was that even the open mics were like organized on Eventbrite. So and it was only 10 comedians at a time ever. It was only 10.
In
Amsterdam.
Amsterdam.
Like the maximum of an open mic was 10 people.
Okay.
And the added fact was like since it doesn't happen like that here because there's so many people doing it here, right? Over there wasn't too many, so they would have a Facebook page. On that Facebook page, they posted, these are the mics happening this week. You comment. You fill out Microsoft, Google Forms. And then they tell you, hey, you're on next week, you're on next week. So that made it easier from the side of like, I know next Tuesday I'm going to go up.
Yeah.
And I know that I'm going to be third. Here, the difference is so many people are doing it. Some shows are raffles. The Laugh Factory is a raffle. The Comedy Bar is a raffle. So you get there. I'm excited. Didn't get picked. Psychological hit. Okay, now I'm going to go to another mic. But it took me a while to get there because I was at this one mic. So now I'm 20th on the list because I came in late. That's another psychological hit because by the time you're 20th, 25th, 30th, most people have left.
Yeah.
So if you're just starting out, I would see it's a lot tougher here. Over there, it was a more nurturing place to grow just because I knew when I was going. I knew how much I knew what days, like, and what spot I was going in. And yeah, there was just less people, so there's more opportunity to get stage time.
Yeah.
Here it's just a bit tougher to get stage time because of the raffles, because of and there's more you got to do to get, there's so many people doing it. And also the US is the mecca of comedy. The US is like where it was born. It's where the best comedians are. So you got to do more to get noticed. But here it's consistency, like everything. But I've noticed that more here, consistency, man. Just keep going to the mics, keep talking to people, become their friends, just build a community. And then eventually you'll start getting those showcases.
What do you think is like the problem you've observed? Like, are there things that hold comedians back? Are there things that stop them from growing, do you think, that you see in people?
I've seen comedians that bombing a few times in a row will get them discouraged, and I completely understand that because the US was the first time I bombed more than twice in a row.
Yeah.
Like in Amsterdam, I never bombed more than twice in a row. Here, I bombed more than twice, I think 3 or 4 times, and that starts getting to you. So a lot of people are discouraged and they stop. I would say, man, just like, again, when you're at the bottom of the wheel, the top is coming soon.
Yeah.
You just keep working. Just have the attitude of like, I got to go back. Another thing is taking long breaks.
Yeah.
Taking long breaks. Again, everybody's brain works different. I cannot take more than a week of a break from comedy.
Yeah.
I start feeling weird. And then when I get up there, I already feel like I've lost a bit of my step. So taking long breaks can be bad. But like in anything, right? You play basketball. You don't practice for 3 months. What do you think is going to happen?
I was going to say, even like you sit in your apartment for 5 days and then you go outside and you're like, wait, how do I talk to people again?
Exactly. Like, I don't like the sun right now. What is this?
Yeah.
This is weird.
Like, it's all of life. You can't it's kind of like getting into the rhythm of things. Like, it's like that with working out. Like, if you don't get into the rhythm of working out and you take a break, all of a sudden that one time going is way harder. Just the idea of getting up and going is like, well, do I really need to? And if you did it yesterday, it's way easier to think, okay, I guess I could do that today.
Yes.
It really is just forcing yourself. I think like life is kind of a lot of just putting yourself in the right situations and knowing how to do that.
Yeah.
Because like you could just dream about things all the time, but if you don't like step outside and do it,
you gotta do it.
Yeah.
And what you said about a rhythm, right? Like that's my engineering mindset again, or the scientific, is breaking the inertia. Like breaking the inertia is the hardest part for anything. Turning a computer on takes the most energy. Turning an air conditioner on takes. Once you're in the rhythm, the energy's a lot less. Now if I'm going to mics 4 days a week, I'm used to this. But when I stop for a week or two, it gets cold in December. I don't want to go to that mic. I don't want to get up. It's dark. Is this and that. But once you've been doing it for months, this is second nature to me. I have to go to this mic.
Yeah.
Why would I not go to this mic? And it's not easy. It's not to say it's easy. There's days where I lay down on my couch and my roommate might have to be like, yo, aren't you going to a mic? Or I have to tell myself. But it's you got to keep doing. So taking long breaks. And the other thing I would say kind of may hinder people is when you don't listen to the audience. If you do a joke 10 times in a row and it does not work, let go, man. Let go. Unless you, man, I don't know. There's some people, like Shane Gillis did in his last special.
Every mother loves their children, okay?
Yeah. Shane Gillis did in his last special where he had a joke that he said, everybody told me that joke wouldn't work and I did it at the special like as a surprise. And I was like, and it worked in that show.
Yeah, but Shane Gillis is like a monster.
Yeah,
though.
he's a beast. And that's what I'm saying is there's times where that can happen. But usually, if a joke doesn't work 10 times, maybe even 5 times, and you're saying it the same way, if you're not switching the angle or saying it a different way, either switch it or let go of that joke.
Yeah. And like there's always room for improvement for everything. So like having that mindset would help a lot. Like not thinking, not like banging your head against the wall saying this is going to work one of these times, but instead like trying to workshop it and thinking, well, why isn't this working? Like maybe there's some maneuvering we can do.
Did you tweak it or did you not tweak it? Did you say it with more emotion, less emotion? There's jokes that I tell people that joke works, but you just said the punchline in the same tone as everything else.
Yeah.
Some comedians are deadpan and that works for them, but some people have emotion when they talk. And I've told people, yo, you made that punchline. People didn't catch it because you said it in that same tone.
Yeah.
You should give it a highlight in the way you say it, or pause before you say that punchline. Because I thought that joke was great, but nobody caught it. I barely caught it.
Yeah.
So it's just like, don't be discouraged if it doesn't work the first few times. But if it doesn't work a few times in a row, there's something you should do to change it. Like, be humble, right? Like, if 10 people, what was that saying I saw? Like, if 10 people are telling you you're doing something wrong, 10 people that you trust, and you still don't think you're being a bit narcissistic. Like, you know, like there's something that you're the common denominator.
I've never heard that one before.
Yeah.
Because I do think like one person's not enough. If
Yeah.
one person tells you, it's like, okay, well, I don't know. But if 10 people tell you,
If your mom, your dad, and your partner, and your brother, and your aunts are all telling you this is a bad habit.
you're like, hey, maybe you shouldn't smoke crack rocks. And you're like,
Exactly. No, I think this is good for me. And the doctor's like, not great, buddy, not great
yeah,
for you.
everybody's saying that. At a certain
Yeah.
point, it's like, you know, maybe
Yeah.
God's slapping you in
Yeah.
the face right now.
And what we talked about earlier is about balance.
yes,
It's a balance,
absolutely.
right? You can't just rely on what people are telling you, and you can't rely on what you know as well. You have a vision. Nobody lives in your brain.
Yep.
You have to find a way to push that vision out there.
And only you truly know the potential of that
Only
vision.
you truly know. I don't know if
Only
it's
you truly know. There, no one else could know.
Yeah, I don't know if it's happened to you with a song where you first wrote it or somebody first heard it, they were like, it's not that great. And you're like, no, you haven't seen what this song is. You haven't seen the intensity of or when this song has a crowd with it or something like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it happened to me when I was with a band. I wrote a song that was pretty tame. I wrote sad boy music. And one of my friends was like, that's too tame. And then we did it at a show and he was like, I get it. You need the people's energy for this song.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, so...
And performing music live is often the best way to get that across. But even then, like with certain types of music, you'll be in a certain room and you'll realize, oh, these people don't see what this is. Like you're not in front of the right audience for that. Like with music, again, it's different than comedy because comedy, you kind of adapt to the moment. Whereas music, it's like the song is what it is. It's made to be what it is.
Yeah.
And so like just depending on who you present it to, so like with rap in particular, I know that people would see some things that I make and immediately in their brain, they're going to connect it to what they think of as this and this and that. And they're not even going to open up to it. I just know some people are like that. Some people,
Yeah.
or they just don't like rap music and they like country music or they like heavy metal music or they like whatever. And it's like, you know, some things are universal and they get across. I think live music gets it across better, but at the same time, it's like all about that. Sometimes people just don't see the potential in you that you know is there. Like, you know it's there because you know exactly what you're in touch with and
Exactly.
you know what's inspiring you. But someone else might not be, no one else, they guaranteed won't be having those same exact like pressure points that you do and those same exact things that excite them that you do. There's a makeup that makes you you. When I had Josh Glore on this podcast a few episodes ago, it was cool because he was talking about his influences, and he was saying how like your influences, like there's people in comedy who like often you can tell they're trying to be a certain person.
Yeah.
They're like so much like this person they like, you can tell. And you know, I think in the conversation we were talking about how you kind of have to find the you inside of your influences and let all those things kind of come together into their own thing, and you figure that out over time.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't want to sound like you're this person and this person. You just want to
Sound like you.
yeah, and that's hard though because
Yeah.
sometimes you don't know what you are and you're just going on stage and trying it out, and you
Exactly.
all you watch is Shane Gillis.
There's a lot of Shane Gillises out there right now.
Yep.
I'm not joking. A lot of guys that will do the same, like, yep. Like, there's a lot of that. And Chappelle had a line about that. It's from a jazz musician. I don't know if it was Miles Davis or who was that had a line that he said, "My favorite day was when I learned how to play like me."
Wow.
That's cool because at the beginning, inevitably, you're gonna be a combination of all these different inspirations you have. That's what you
Yeah,
are.
absolutely.
Like I know the comedians that I kind of imitate. Sometimes I do things on stage. I'm like, that's very Chappelle-esque. That's very like Shane Gillis. That's very I don't know, Sam Morril or something. But over time, it starts coming in, blending into this own thing that's you. I still have a long way to go to have like my own thing. But there's a lot of people who just imitate. But hopefully, but again, nobody's static, hopefully.
And you have to kind of follow that potential in yourself, like going back to what we were saying before, that vision in yourself in order to truly capitalize on that and be you. You have to find out what that is. Like, what is it in me that separates me from everything else?
Exactly.
What is that? Because there is something. You're a snowflake. We're all unique. It's true. I mean, that's like truly like one of the things I try to push in art, and I try to make that a big thing, is like to show people like what you have to offer is unique. What you do is only you and no one else. There's a song I have called Basically where it's ain't nobody gonna take that away. I swear no one can tell me nothing. God's got no explaining to do.
If you told me how to say, if you explain, I could fake it and love it. There's no me if I'm basically you. And that's all it's saying, is there's no me if I'm basically you. It wouldn't exist. If I was trying to be whatever I see other people being, then I won't be myself. And that takes away from the whole experience of life. And like, you don't want to have other people tell you how to do it and show you how to do things. You do want to just kind of cultivate your own thing. That's what makes you so cool. And like, I really think that's like, it's actually sad to me that people don't think like that. Like, they don't think that way, and they get all nervous and they're like, oh shit, well, I don't know. You can see it all over their face. You know that's how they're thinking. And you just want to grab them and be like, no.
No, there's something that you have to offer. And in comedy, that's where you want to get to. You want to get so comfortable up there that now I'm me.
I think it teaches
now
you to
I'm
do
different.
it. I think it's like a great way to learn, because it forces you to do it, because you have to be yourself to be comfortable on a stage. There's no other choice.
And then, like you said, you could be funny on accident, right? Once you get so comfortable up there doing comedy, then that mind that you have when you're with your friends and that random funniness comes out. Those are the best shows.
Yeah.
When you see these comedians start doing random crowd work and they bounce off of anything you say because they're just talking, they're being themselves, they're giving you their honest answer, that's the best.
And I think, like, again, with the improv thing, one of the principles of improv is to not try to be funny. It's to try to be honest.
Just respond.
And it's the honesty that's actually funny. And like, that's so true. When you're with friends and you're having a good time and you're making them laugh, you're not like playing into it and trying to be the comedian. You're not the person on the stage. You're just their friend. It's just going along with it and giving them honest responses. And then, like, that's, again, when you tap into that, that's hard though. That's hard because I think it's the same thing I was saying before. It's people don't trust themselves enough. Truly, I think they don't see that vision enough, and they think like they make up these questions, and they're like, oh, are people enjoying this? Like, oh, is everybody having a bad time right now? Like, oh, and they just have this self-defeating mentality that like, they kill themselves with slowly.
Yeah,
and all you can do is lead by example. Like, I think the only answer is to just be the person that goes on the stage and is yourself, and that's why people like those people so much. So they identify with it. They're like, oh yes, that's what I could be doing.
I know this guy. I know this girl. Like, I know what they do, and like,
and you trust that, and you're like, you see it in yourself. You see that freedom in yourself. You're like, oh, I could be doing that. And you feel it. You're like, oh, if they can do it, I can do it. Like, why am I not doing that? They're
exactly. When you see
themselves.
them commit, and it's like some things might look a bit like, oh, maybe cringe or whatever. But when I see people committing, I'm like, doesn't matter if it's cringe, bro.
I feel the same way.
You're giving it all. You're giving it all, and I respect that. There was a movie.
You could crump. You could just like break dance on stage for 4 minutes. If you're committed to that, you could be the worst dancer, and I would be like, get it.
Yeah, exactly. If you went up there and did that, but then you were like half-assing it, then I'm cringing because like, oh, not only is this like a kind of random thing to do, but you're also not loving it and not doing it.
Who's paying you right now?
Yeah. The way what helped me a lot was when I started getting gigs where I could host the show.
Yeah.
I went online to look for advice, how to be an MC for a show. And one of the biggest articles that I read was like, it said, it's not your job to be funny as a host. It's your job to get the crowd into the show, like together. So what I did is I just started talking. They said funny moments might pop out, but if you try to be funny, you're kind of going to lose them. You're kind of this person that's accompanying them through the show. So what I did is I just started, there's MCs that do it different ways. Some MCs will just do their set and then start the show. But the route I took was like, let me just talk to everyone who's here who's not a comedian. Oh, what do you do? And something would happen. Well, who are you with here today? And now it's a conversation. Now we all kind of know each other. I would have these little games of like, in between comedians, I would ask people, what's one movie everybody loves that you hate? And that would get people laughing because then they would talk to each other. But then I got them in there, but it got me in that mindset of let me be in the moment. Let me just listen to whatever they say. It's not my job to be funny. But then through that, it was really funny. Because then a bunch of answers started coming out that were funny. Like I asked a girl like what her favorite movie was, and she said, oh, it's Fast and Furious. And immediately I said, you should watch more movies. And like the room just lost it. She said Fast 5 or something. I was like, not even the first one? Like, what's going on here? But it was that thing that you're saying.
That's a great response, man.
That was the thing of what you were saying of I was in the moment. I just listened to her. I didn't have that locked and loaded. It just happened.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that moment, you captured that moment. Like everybody's going to remember that response because it was so unique to
more than any
room.
of my jokes, probably they remember that moment.
And you know, like that's a great philosophy to apply to hosting in particular, because I have noticed that a lot of comedians they'll watch the other people go and then they'll just throw one of their jokes in between everybody's set, like just always do a bit. Maybe it's related to what the last comedian said, maybe it's not, but they just throw, not like playing to the moment and making up something new, but like they're just saying one of their jokes. And I think that's kind of like, again, you kind of lose people when you do that. I think you'd be better off if you just go up there and just say like something about what the last person just said.
Yeah.
One thing I saw somebody do, and his name's not going to come to my mind right away, so I'm not going to butcher it.
Yeah.
But I saw him at, he was hosting James's first apartment show, the second apartment show, the Cozy Corner comedy show. He was hosting the second one. And he was on stage, and he made sure to go up after everybody's set and acknowledge like something they said and make a joke out of it. Like he made it a joke every time flawlessly. And it was like every single time you got to laugh. And that left an impression on me, just the fact that he did it. Because I'm like, oh, he's being present and like listening to what everybody's saying, and during their set coming up with at least one joke. And it was just one joke, and then he would say it and he'd be like, okay, on to the next person. And that's what the host should do, is just acknowledge the moment and then on to the next person. Let's not look at me for 4 minutes. It's not about me, it's about the show.
You should be the only one without a script. Like you should be, and you can do your bits, but just make sure you connect with people, because see, you connected, and it was like, if he went into one of his bits that has nothing to do with it, he's gotta going to another place and kind of breaking the string a little bit.
Yeah.
If he made a joke about something that happened, oh man, I recall that. That was cool. Yeah, that's a perfect example.
Yeah.
You were caught because he was being
playing
present.
the audience's intelligence too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like allowing me to be like, oh, I can connect those dots. I do know, and it leaves an impression. It makes me think later. Oh, he did that. Yeah, that's the thing he did. More than anything else. More than anything else. More than his set. He had a set. I remember that.
And hosts have to be so present. If something awkward happens, if somebody heckles really badly, and you don't address it for the whole show, that makes the show a bit weird.
Yep.
If a comedian goes up there, a comedian or the host addresses it and doesn't make it mean, but makes like a joke out of it, or like, then it's better because you're in the moment, you're acknowledging what's happening. That wasn't something that happened in a vacuum. That happened, we all saw that person scream, that person did this. Acknowledge it, please, for all of us. Be in the moment and let me know I'm not crazy that happened.
Yeah. But it's, it's making it funny. That's the hard part. How do I make that person screaming funny?
Yeah, practice. Even with crowd work, there's go-tos you can have.
Yeah.
Like I know I have one crowd work bit where it's like, I ask if there's any Latinos in the audience, and it came to me once, like, but now I use it if it happens. And if somebody from Spain says, "Oh, I'm Latino," I'm like, "No, you're not." Like, and I'll do something funny with that. So even with crowd work, there are some escapes that you can use. There are some routes you could take. But yeah, making it funny, it's not going to be every time. Some people are crazy at it. Some people are masters.
Are you familiar with Mark Normand?
Yes.
So his thing he does with just he's real good at just quick one-liners, which is like an art form in itself, like to the point where he'll just have people shout out current topics and he'll just be able to come up with a bit on this, almost like he rehearsed all these different topics in his head already or something. He's like a machine. It's actually kind of scary to me because don't get me wrong, no comedian's perfect, but the way that he's able to do that is a crazy skill form. It's like, it makes me think all those moments where I come up with a funny joke 6 seconds later. He comes up with them in 1 second.
Said it,
yeah. It's hard
that's
to do
a skill.
that.
I hope that comes with years. Also, he's where he is, right? He's an extremely talented guy.
Absolutely. And he came through New York, which is again notoriously harsh to break through. Yeah.
But I think it's a little bit of everything that we're saying. It's mostly his brain that's amazing at it. Probably has a little repertoire of things in his pocket for big topics. Maybe if something political or if something dating wise, or maybe he already has things in his pocket that or that he thought about at some point. And if it comes up, mostly it's probably his improvisation skills. But there's always probably a little bit in the pocket of I can bring this out if it helps.
It's hard to turn everything into a joke somehow. It really is like a skill. Because I've thought I call this a comedy podcast. Now we have comedians on more often, so I can legitimately call it that. But I just use that as a scapegoat so I could say whatever I want, okay? If it's comedy, it was a joke. You didn't understand, guys. It was all a joke.
It's art, and you're not getting it.
But truly, I think that it's a muscle. It's not easy to turn things into humor all the time. If I was legitimately trying to be a comedy podcast, I'd probably try to do that. I'd probably try to do it all the time. Instead, I just say whatever. Like I think that's what I think a good podcast is. That's what I like. That's what I would listen to, is people being themselves. But there are podcasts I'll listen to where they're trying to do comedy and only comedy, and they like, that's a muscle to just respond comedically.
Yeah.
That's different. Some people can play a character for 3 hours on end, and that's that comedic person that gives you those comedic responses. That's what I think Mark Norman's doing. I don't think that's who he is. I just think he's turning himself on and being a comedian.
No, because he has interviews like with like Lex Friedman that he can be serious. He can be very serious.
Yeah, I remember that one. Yeah.
I haven't watched the whole thing yet. Yeah.
He was joking with them. He was joking.
Yeah, he was joking a lot, but he told like the deep stories about like what happened in his life. But
I haven't watched that one in a long time. I should rewatch it because I watched it when it came out years ago.
Yeah, no, I haven't even. I've only watched like the first 20 minutes like as of right now. But it was interesting to see like, wow, like what you've been through and like.
Lex Friedman's good at that. Good at, like, again, with the asking questions thing. He's really good at just asking questions and letting people go. Like, I mean, there's different. I think podcasts are cool because it really is, especially when they're in person, it's really hard to do through like a Zoom call and stuff like that. But I think there's a certain, again, with the subconscious thing, like there's a certain thing that happens. Like when you're here with someone and I'm talking with you, what I pull out of you is dependent on my energy and what I'm giving you. And so like what makes a good podcast is when somebody just has some kind of personality that offers that. Like Lex Friedman's really good at just getting people to talk for 20 minutes about whatever their thing that they know a lot about is. And they just talk and he can just let them talk. Me, I get excited and I want to ask another question. And like, I don't even know how you could cultivate that. Like he's really good at it. He's really good at it. It's hard.
You're already seeing him. I think it's practice. Whatever you want to do, right? You just notice it.
Yeah.
And you just put it into practice. And just keep doing a bunch of podcasts, man. I love this. This is fun. Like,
thank you, man.
We'll come back whenever, man.
Yeah. We know what we're doing here. I'm a professional. What can I say?
It's all right. We got a cat, man. We're talking wisdom. I don't know. It's fun.
I like to think that like the show has a philosophical theme just because the way my brain works. I love that though. I tend to go that way. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, well, you said like a lot of life is like that. It's like this guy's like me because I like reading about wisdom and all that stuff. And I'm like, comedy is like life, guys. Like
truly though, I do think that like if you think in such a grand way, if you allow and you try to apply like theories to these things and connect these things, you come up with more of a coherent structure for your life and for the way you approach it. And that's why it's so valuable to try to think in such a way. Like it actually is very valuable to not just box yourself in or not just think, oh, it is what it is, and try to ask questions and learn about things and genuinely dive deep into it. Like you want to do comedy, like think about comedy and think about what that means and what that really is. Like, what are you doing when you go up there and you go on stage and you tell these jokes?
Yeah.
What does that represent to people? What does it represent to you? Why do you want to do it? And those are the things that really enlighten you and make you a better comedian, is when you think in those grand terms rather than just thinking, oh, fuck it, I'm just going on stage and talking shit. Like,
what am I trying to...
You're making magic up there.
Yeah, and I always go with a game plan. Like, I always try to, like, treat every mic as much as I can, right? Like, I'm trying to get new jokes in here, trying to build a longer set. Today I'm gonna work on my crowd work. Today I'm gonna work on my cadences. Today I'm gonna work on my hand gestures or things like that. So yeah, there's always something to be gained from it.
Yeah.
And like anything that you do constantly, it builds a discipline. So like now I have to get out at nights and do this, and then you realize, like, I talk to my friends at work and they're like, oh, how many mics do you do a week? Like one, and I'm like, no, I try to go Monday through Thursday, and they're like, holy crap, like you're yeah. Until I get showcases, then I'll be doing Monday through Friday, But then it's very different. But then I realized I've been doing it so long that it's just the discipline. I have it now. It's in my... Now when I don't do a comedy show, when I stay home one day, I'm like, there's so many hours in the day that I could just lounge around. Like if I go work and then I go to the gym and I don't do a comedy show, it's like, this is so chill. Like people live this life.
I've learned that like when I play video games now, I feel guilty and I realize I can't even do this anymore. Like I realize
sometimes it
I'm
feels
wasting.
like that. Dude.
Yeah. Like it's like I could be following my goals here and instead I'm like turning on a game and oh my God, it's been 3 hours. What the hell?
Yeah. And also give yourself the space to play. Like absolutely. I was a lot like I still am. I only play games now that it's with my friends so I can catch up with them, like Fortnite or something. But recently I was like, my roommate has Tears of the Kingdom, the Zelda one, and I really like Breath of the Wild. So I was like, let me play this. Let me give myself this whole. Usually on Sunday. So when I get back from here, that's what I'm gonna do all day. Is just play. Because Sundays is my chill day. I already went grocery shopping before this, and so like Sundays are my chill day. So then I can during the week, I pursue these things. I go to the work, go to the gym, go to do comedy. And then during the weekend, doing those things feels so much sweeter.
Yeah.
Like playing the video games or like going out and drinking with my friends. It feels so much sweeter because I worked hard for that. But like, it's a balance.
And
Like,
you know, it really, again, like with the bombing and then the doing good, it's the same thing. Like knowing you put in that work makes it feel so much better. When you don't put in that work and you relax, if you relax all the time and you never do it, that relaxing actually sucks. It's not fun anymore. Then you're like, wow, I'm not accomplishing anything. And you're just playing video games all day and it hurts your heart and soul.
Exactly.
But if you know you spent like, and it has to be something that means something to you. Like, you know that when you go out and you do comedy, you feel gratified. Like when you work out, you feel gratified. Like, I should have done that. Like those things are the most important things. Like, you know, you might not want to go to your day job, but you definitely want to go do comedy.
Yeah, and I like this. If anybody's watching this, I do enjoy my day job. Obviously, comedy is like would be the goal.
Yeah.
You know, that would be the most amazing
I just
thing.
say it. I say I'm quitting my day job. You guys will see me later.
But yeah, I like the way you think a lot because also the same would be the true for the opposite if I did too many mics and then I would like get saturated of comedy and I would like a friend of mine recently went on a trip.
You'd be telling jokes about telling jokes.
Yeah, and a friend of mine went on a trip recently to New York. She's like, I'm gonna do this mic and this mic and this mic, and I was like, enjoy the city as well. Don't just. I mean, if you enjoy it so much, but like if I'm going with friends somewhere on a trip, I'm not gonna drag them to my open mics. You know, like if I'm going somewhere. So just to say, you got to make a balance of that, pursuing your goals and relaxing. Like I remember James after his comedy show that night at the house. He's like, "Hey, we're going to this other mic." I was like, "What are you crazy? It's like 11 at night. I'm not gonna go to any other mic. I'm gonna go party, man." Like, but you know, he loves it. I love it as well. But I know my limits very well.
Yeah.
And I know that I could get saturated really quickly.
Yeah.
So I do Monday through Thursday for now. If I have a showcase, then I'll add that to the weekend. So.
And like, I guess before we get out of here too, mention just about getting the showcase and how that whole thing went down. Like, what's the story behind that? How did the showcase go? Like, I'm sure it's your first showcase, so I'm sure there's
my
something
first
to
showcase here in Chicago. So I got a contact. Somebody was like, "Hey, talk to this person. You've been doing really well. So talk to this person and send them a clip." I think, and then I got a recommendation from that person who gave me the contact. And then, the guy DM'd me back. He was like, "Hey, we got a free spot this Sunday at this show. Do you want to come in?" So it's about, I mean, you do it constantly. Somebody's going to see you and something's going to happen. But also sometimes you got to put in your effort, network, get those names of like, hey, who does shows? Start sending clips.
Just like that.
Yeah, but like try to be polite. Don't badger people either. You got to make a balance. So there's one contact I got given for Zanies that they were like, send it every 2 weeks because they get so many emails. Send them every 2 weeks a video and this. And it feels weird, right? Because you don't want to push, but also you can't be waiting around all day.
Yeah.
Either. So you can just be polite, short message, 5-minute clip. Make sure it's high quality. They might not even see it, but at least now they know. But also the best advice I can give for what I've seen here, and I think everywhere it's like that. But here, doing well from the very beginning is not going to get you those immediate showcases. Stay after the shows, network, talk to people. I don't always stay after every show. Like, there's shows that go on later that I wish I could stay till the very end and talk to the host, but they're just too late, and I got my day job. But network, man, talk to people. A lot of people run shows. Technically, my first showcase was James Najars, like that one, like his house one. So shout out to him for giving me that first one. I guess, my first comedy club show here.
Yeah.
What was that one?
The first thing organized by a syndicated publisher.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever we want to call it.
So network, get those contacts, start sending out clips.
Yeah.
You know?
And that goes for anything you're doing. Like, you are your own manager in the end, but you do have to hustle. You do have to put yourself out there in front of the right people. It's kind of like if a tree falls in the woods and nobody hears it, did it really fall at all?
Yeah.
If you told the best joke in the world and the room erupted, how is this comedy club going to know unless they see it? And so you kind of just have to throw yourself in front of them. I mean, that's good that you would. I think a lot of comedians probably need to hear that. They probably don't realize, oh my God, they're probably thinking, oh my God, is it that easy? I just have to send this to them. I thought this whole time I had to wait for them to notice me. And,
and it can't happen. It's just harder. You know? You'd have to get picked a few times at the Laugh Factory, a few times at the Comedy Bar, and then the Comedy Bar is a good one to like. I think if you do well like 3 or 4 times, they'll call you for their actual show or let you know. So those always try to go to those raffle ones. It is exhausting to not get picked like 5, 6 times in a row, but those shows are very, very good. And also advice on those shows: try not to do new stuff. If you get picked for the Laugh Factory or for Comedy Bar, try to do your best stuff. And even the hosts have told me, they're like, people are looking, people are watching in these ones. But the other mics that are organized by comics themselves, you know, those mics, very rarely is there going to be any big booker looking at those, right? If it's not a comedy club. Get a high quality, invest in, it's easier said than done. I just did it now. I saved up enough to buy a nice camera. Or with an iPhone. iPhones are so good. Get good lighting, get an iPhone, get a high quality video, and then start sending those, you know? And the algorithms at Instagram, TikTok, all those will push your stuff if it's high quality.
Yes.
If it's bad quality, they're going to push it down because all they want is their app to look pretty.
Well, and it's all about like keeping people to the quality and the watch time, and people are more likely to watch if they see that there's a production value to this. They're like, oh, look at this. Like this is a real piece of content here. Like I have this GoPro here I use for the podcast, but I use that to film all my performances. If you need like an entry-level, super basic camera to just push and go, a GoPro will do it for you. Or a lot of these basic video cameras. That's what they're there for. GoPro especially. It's meant to film like sports and stuff. You just set it there and you just let it go. You got 4K footage of your performance right there. And things you can buy a good GoPro for like probably $300.
Yeah.
It's not that much on the grand scheme of these things. Like if you want to really get into it, there are steps you can take to where you can make your own stuff marketable and put yourself out there. And I think people just kind of get hung up on it and I just want to be an artist. I just want to do this. But it's like, you want people to know you're an artist though.
Exactly.
How do you make this difference that you want to make as an artist? How do we make that happen? A lot of the time it is putting in that little extra effort and getting across to people exactly the value you offer and the prospect of your potential and your vision. You have to sell it to them.
Invest in yourself.
Yeah, and if you invest in yourself, the world is at your fingertips, folks. I think that's a cute way to end it. Is there a good Instagram or a good social media, all that stuff they can find you on? Now's your moment to let them know where you are on the internet.
Oh, perfect. So Instagram, like Emily in Paris, it's Marcos in Chicago, but instead of IN in English, it's in Spanish, Marcos en Chicago. And then
we're the knockoff
series. Emily in Paris, baby.
This is on Amazon streaming service.
Exactly. This is some Hulu stuff. And then TikTok, M Cirino, my last name, so it's MCIRINO. Cirino. Yeah.
All right, nice. It was a pleasure having you here, sir. I'm sure we'll have you here again.
I'd love to. This is fun, man.
There we go. Yeah, it'll be your first, second, and third podcast.
Let's go.
And with that being said, folks, Ruse Radio clocking out.
Got the world in my pocket, got a girl on my arm, got an eye in my socket, whirlwinds in my palms. I'm a free man, let me lead you along. I can show you something different, let me sing you a song. Ain't no algorithm touch me, ain't no palace this lovely. I found a way to find out where y'all